Thank you so much for joining us for our presentation about supporting deeper learning through the school library. Of course, school libraries are very important to both Carrie and myself. I have been a Kentucky school librarian in K through 8 schools for the last 22 years. And right now, I am at the Marnell C. Mormon School in Shelby County in Shelbyville, Kentucky. And that's where I am in my messy office this morning because it's summer and it's like extra. And well, if we are already acquainted, you know I'm probably like a little bit extra all the time. So that shouldn't surprise you.
And I have experience as a preschool through fifth grade media specialist for about 7 years, and I've been in my current position for about another 7 years or so as a high school librarian. So I've had a little bit of the spectrum at both ends.
All right. So if you want to either, use a additional device, if you want to use that QR code, if you want to go back into the waiting room or the chat and click on that link, then you can see our slides or use them later to go back and review. So those are, if you're a multiple device person, then you might want to have it open on one and be looking or listening in a different way on one of your other devices. So I will go ahead and kick it off with this thought. This is actually a quote that I use in a lot of presentations. So the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And to me, so this is by Alvin Toffler. He was an author who was most notable for something that he wrote in 1970 called Future Shock. And the fact that he said this in 1970 and we're still doing all of the same things that we're talking about, that lifelong learning and deeper learning component of education, I think, is what is going to truly make a difference for our students. And one of the things that I think about when I think about deeper learning is that it's that true lifelong learning. It's the things that you don't put aside on Friday because you took your assessment. Like, okay, well, we learned these were our spelling words for the week, and I didn't do great, but I guess I can, see, now I'm just getting off. So,
but yes, and AI is we're gonna see where we've done some things with using Chat GPT, but AI is a perfect example of this, of how even the computer science field is causing our CS majors and stuff to unlearn, relearn, and as they progress through AI being introduced.
Yeah, I just used AI yesterday to make an outline for something I'm working on for our 23 summer refresher library conference. So AI is here, AI is real. How can humans start using AI? And you probably want to log back in later for Donnie Piercy, who's going to talk about AI this afternoon. Now, so all this set aside, what is deeper learning? There are so many people talking about deeper learning, particularly in Kentucky right now. It's whether it's your educational cooperative who's talking about deeper learning, whether it's your district who's talking about deeper learning, whether you just have been on the internet and seen people on social media, teacher social media talking about deeper learning. It is complicated and multifaceted.
We start first seeing the term deeper learning coming in, I guess it was, around 1993 or so, 2000, early 2000s maybe, with the Hewlett Foundation, when they were looking at what skills and knowledge students needed to possess to succeed in a 21st century, particularly in jobs and civic life. So that's where we first start seeing deeper learning, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation actually created the deeperlearning.org, which we'll see another definition that kind of goes along with the Hewlett Foundation. And see the Deeper Learning Hub, which was founded by the Hewlett Foundation, you'll see that it's those higher order thinking skills, learning dispositions, and collaboration skills. So again, it piggyback off of the Hewlett Packard group. And we now see it manifesting in United We Learn, which we all know is our new initiative to look at vibrant learning experiences and looking at sound assessment decisions in the state of Kentucky. And deeper learning is a huge, huge, huge component of those vibrant learning experiences. And as a result, you're going to see our cooperatives deeply involved in the deeper learning initiatives going throughout the state. As a fact, a lot of the research that we pulled came directly from the cooperatives across the state, because they are leading the way in whether it's project-based learning or anything that's going to be considered deeper learning.
And our own Commissioner of Education, Dr. Glass, said this: I believe Kentuckians were telling us they wanted students to experience the kind of complex and detailed work they will need to be successful in when they leave our schools. These kinds of learning experiences can also be called deeper learning. And so specifically, it's the student experience of complex and detailed work that all of these pushes from all these different places in Kentucky are wanting us to look at more closely. And after we've given you the overview of what we turned up about what deeper learning is, then we're going to talk more specifically about how our school libraries can play a role in supporting and building these experiences.
So deeper learning has about 6 competencies to it, and you're going to notice a lot of these terms are terms you've been familiar with. So one thing we want to point out is you are already practicing deeper learning competencies as a media specialist in your library currently. We just need to make sure we know the terminology and communicate from an advocacy point of why what we do supports the mission of the school and what your administrators want students to come out of. So we're already doing the work. We just need to make sure we're putting the terminology so that we can advocate for our school libraries, for our students and ourselves. And you can see here that they're deeper learning competencies. These are the ones that the Hewlett Foundation and the Deeper Learning Hub put together. And you're going to notice that as we go through and we start looking at United We Learn and some of our competencies and so forth, particularly our portrait of a graduate, it matches up very closely with all of this.
So these are the things that the Hewlett Foundation identified initially, which then turn into these specific deeper learning competencies through the Deeper Learning Hub, which have a lot of connections to now what KDE is sharing that is supposed to go in the portrait of a learner. A lot of districts have a profile of a graduate, including Shelby County. Shelby County's profile of a graduate has been in place for quite some time. And we are actually now doing our defenses of learning for 5th grade, 8th grade, and then as a senior in high school. So as our students transition through their K-12 education, the expectation here in Shelby County is that kids need to be able to talk about in a meaningful way the work that they are doing and how it is preparing them for the future. And for us, almost all the things that are in here actually are also in our current profile of graduate. So we talked all about this big picture stuff, but how can school libraries specifically support deeper learning in our buildings? Well, there's big ways that school libraries can support deeper learning. And then there's really like more targeted specific ways. So we're going to start big and we're going to condense as we move on. Now, of course, our school libraries need to be able to support all content areas in instruction. We need to be able to enhance personalized learning opportunities in our buildings.
We need to be able to assist with learning engagement and critical thinking and reinforce those profile of a learner / graduate skills that we just showed you. And we are doing this as some of the tech leaders in our building. We are the ones leading the way on all of this.
But like we said, we wanted specifics, and so we started digging in.
And one thing that when we looked at the materials from the education cooperatives is that Kentucky has 4 pillars of deeper learning, and they are equitable systems and instructional design, accountability and assessment, and community partnerships. And once you start seeing things like that, where like Shelby County is doing their defenses, you will see where all of these tie in together into our profile of a learner and graduate skills.
So we just kept digging and we just kept finding more stuff. And so, as is the new hot, cool thing to do, is I asked ChatGPT for help. So it actually gave me a lot of interesting things to think about. I have been using ChatGPT for a lot of brainstorming opportunities, and I highly suggest it as a tool for even your own deeper learning, or to be able to provide kids with some additional ways to, if you can give it a prompt, it can produce a thing, and then have your kids actually be the ones who critique it and pull it apart. But all of that out aside, we came up with these 4 things. The 4 things that we actually looked at that we think that school libraries can do are that your school library can support access to diverse resources, and that means diverse in a lot of different ways. You can also use your school library to support research and information literacy skills instruction.
Then there's the collaboration and co-teaching component. We all know that we collaborate a ton with our teachers and co-teach, regardless of the grade level. And then those community connections. Sometimes we work on an island by ourselves because we may be the only ones in our building. If you're in a smaller district with only a handful of schools, there may only be 1 or 2 of you in your whole district. So those community connections prove invaluable too. And you'll see how each of these line up to those 4 pillars.
So we thought that the most connected to the equitable systems pillar, the instructional design pillar, the accountability and assessment pillar, and then our community partnerships pillar. Those were those 4 things connected to those 4 pillars. But now we will dig in to each one of those things. So first, let's talk about equitable systems. So if we are making if we've got to focus on equity for our students, then they need access to diverse resources. And that means not only standard aligned materials that are appropriate for a variety of learners at a variety of levels. And we all know that it doesn't matter how many grades in your school you have, the diversity among what kids are ready for at this point is even more disparate than it has been. I can't think of another time in my career when there have been so many needs and so many levels to be addressed. But
particularly in the past, that used to be just with the, we'd see it concentrated on EL students and so forth. That's what we thought about when we thought about all the diverse levels. But since the pandemic, we know we've got kids multiple grade levels behind now. So we still have to look at those EL materials and things like that, but we've got to look at everything for everyone because they are coming at us at crazy different levels.
And not only the instructional side of resources, but the recreational reading side of resources. Kids deserve to see themselves in the materials that they read, and they are much more likely to become a lifelong reader if they can build that connection during K-12. But there may be things in your district's instruction or your specific school. Maybe your school has a special program that the kids in your building need and a bigger chunk of. Are you a magnet school? Are you serving 9 grades full of children like I am in a K-8 building? There's so many different sets of standards. And if you didn't know, we have lots of things that are aligned not only to our specific standards. If you didn't know, there is a set of Kentucky library media standards that if library media instruction is happening in your school, then it should be aligned to those standards. But then there's all of the other core content and additional content like computer science that we can make those connections with and provide opportunities for teachers and students. Anything you want to add in there?
Yep, you got it, girl.
All right, well then we'll keep rolling. I'll let you kick this one off.
Okay.
Emily and Carrie, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I guess I do mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry too, but we did have a question and I wanted to throw it back to you in case you didn't see it in the chat. And then if you want to get to it later or however, it's what would you recommend for early childhood classrooms that do not have access to school libraries, but only have classroom resources? Do you want me to repeat that?
I'm opening it up in the chat. What would you
recommend? It's initial A and then Peyton.
Do you have, are you a teacher in, I'm not for sure the first name, it just says A Peyton, but are you a classroom teacher or do you have, do you run a school library? Let's see. I know what I do a lot of times as a school librarian. I work individually with my departments, and a lot of times we will pull our departmental funds. If teachers, and it's not just my English teachers, it could be any content area. If they are needing access to books that align to their curriculum and they may not have enough of the money, I will give up some of my library funds to help support those needs that they need. A lot of times we are pulling funds from everywhere. So I also write a lot of grants and point my teachers to grants. And I know they're so busy that a lot of times I will help co-write those grants so that they can get those materials in there as well. Emily, what do you do?
Yeah, well, so that was specifically early childhood focused, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I would say that one of the best ways to be able to provide those kind of resources in an early childhood setting where you don't have access to maybe a large or like active school library in that building. I know that some early childhood centers just have, some like basic collections that you share. That is when, if you were going back to those pillars that we were talking about, the community connection, then that would be in those early childhood programs. I think that you've got a great opportunity to partner with your local public library in order for them to either let your school or individual classrooms borrow materials on various topics at various levels, or if you have the option to be able to use some digital resources in your early childhood classrooms, then not only does the Kentucky Virtual Library have a lot of materials that would be very easy to use if you have a public library card or you are affiliated with a public school system, and then you can access through their subscription. There's things like Epic that is free to use, and you can even share those things with kids during the school day if you have access to devices. If you don't have the physical print devices in your building at any grade level, there are a lot of electronic resources that you can take advantage of.
Also pay attention to our listserv. I know that Amy Grant and Kathy and the rest from KET, they do so much, especially for our early childhood students, of offering free resources. And a lot of these are ebooks and so forth. And they even come in multiple languages. There's one I'm thinking off the top of my head. I don't know the name of it, Amy, but I know we've used it with some of our EL kids who are newcomers and so forth. So KET is great, but also the Amy Olson from KDLA with the book crates. If you, with just your public library card, they will actually, you can put a request in and they will send you book baskets on different topics, and you can keep them for so long. And I've done that. I mean, even at the high school level with my business department, when some of the finance book baskets come out and things like that, that they want to use in their classrooms. And so it enables me not to have to purchase those books, but they have access to those hard copy books as necessary. And then Capstone, if you, they are good about, if you purchase the books, you get the ebook free. At least they were when I was in elementary.
No, it's backwards.
Backwards.
The ebook, you get the hardcover free.
Okay. I knew it was one of the two. It's been a while since I've been in elementary.
Abdo does that as well.
So there's quite a few ways you can do double bang for your buck if you've got the bucks. Hopefully that helped you some.
And if you're going to spend money, you definitely want to spend some money on recreational reading materials, because our kids deserve to form a positive association with reading. Now, right now, there's all kinds of schools and public libraries who are doing summer reading programs. There's businesses like, obviously Barnes and Noble, Joseph Beth, there's bookstores who are offering summer reading programs. There's an individual Camp Book It program that families can sign up for to do their traditional, and who doesn't want a personal pan pizza for reading? Who doesn't?
And
If
don't
you
forget
don't want if you've never had a personal pan pizza for reading, are you even a reader?
and then don't forget the Kentucky Shared Collection, which I know that if you're getting in on that, it has to be in by, I think your funds have to be in by middle of August. But my kids would not have the access to the ebooks and the streaming audio books that they have if I didn't participate in the Kentucky Shared Collection. And if you're not familiar with what that is, that's where basically, depending on the size of your school, depends on how much you pay to join this consortium of school libraries. And they have it for elementary, middle, and high school. And we just wouldn't have the access to the ebooks and the audio streaming books that if we didn't participate in this.
If you're familiar with using Kentucky Libraries Unbound through your public library and the Libby app for access for yourself, this is essentially the McInvia Kentucky Shared Collection is like Kentucky School Libraries Unbound. And if you would like more information on the Kentucky Shared Collection, I would love to share that with you. I am the K-5 lead curator for that, and I would love to bring you on board. Please just email me directly if you would like that. But some of the things that we want to point out about recreational reading collections, kids are into graphic novels right now like nothing else. And the thing is, there's still a lot of parents and even some teachers who will turn around and say, but graphic novels aren't real books. No, yes, they are. They are. There's actually scientific proof that they are an amazing way for kids to acquire vocabulary because of the representation through non-text representation of those words. When they encounter a unique word or concept and they also are seeing that picture, then that is, it escapes me. I wish I had
visual reinforcement.
Yes, that's it. There's
the visualization.
But if you haven't genreified your collection, that's also something you should think about. Make using that bookstore style model for easy browsing. That can be the thing that maybe unlocks an entire group of materials that a student or a teacher hasn't even considered in the past. Use everything you can to try to find ways to reach all the readers, because if a kid says they hate reading, it is my deep belief that they have not met the right book. And it's my mission in life to figure out how to introduce them to that book. Cracking that code there's nothing better.
Okay, so for instructional design, one thing that struck me when I sit on the United We Learn Council, and on the first day, Dr. Glass gets up there and he's talking about deeper learning. And one thing he said is that project-based learning is deeper learning, let's see, how did he put it? Project-based learning is deeper learning, but all deeper learning is not project-based. So a lot of people get scared because you think you're going to be doing these big projects, but it doesn't necessarily have to be project-based. Remember that inquiry learning is the deeper learning. When we do the student voice and choice, and they've got options of how they want to learn what you want them to learn, that is going into the deeper learning.
And frankly, Inquiry learning is totally our wheelhouse as librarians. This is the moment that we have trained for. This is our big opportunity to get in there and gives kids the skills to answer their own questions. That is something that is going to serve them throughout their entire life, whether it's asking a question that's academic, whether it's asking a question about a personal interest. Being able to build those questions also is going to help them use AI, because AI is all about the prompt. So if we are going to build independence, if we are going to give them those skills, we've got to scaffold them into what we know works. This is the unique expert training that school librarians have. And so if we want to be making a difference for all of our kids, then it is my great hope that more administrators will remember that that is what we are here for.
And that's one of the things at the high school level that I concentrate on, is making sure I get into those departmental meetings, and when they're struggling with something, I'm like, okay, this is something I can help you out with. So it builds up that collaboration and everything. And as that's actually been one of my professional growth goals for the past few years. It's so as I plug along, I start seeing more and more collaboration, that teachers are like, oh, okay, well, she does know this. I don't have to teach this now. I don't have to feel uncomfortable teaching something that's not in my wheelhouse. This is hers. And I'm actually getting some of them to start doing some more technology-based type things and saying, okay, let me make those tech rubrics. I will grade that component for you. You do the part that's your content related, and you will start. I've started seeing my teachers become more frequent flyers to collaborate for this research and information literacy instruction that they're not always comfortable with.
This is also a great opportunity if you are a tech nerd like I am, and you want to be able to help your teachers be able to then I built a choice board that a number of my grade levels used in order to pick how they wanted to show their learning and with what type of product they wanted to make. And that's something that was a success for me towards the end of the year, and I look forward to starting with it in the coming school year. Now, and we were talking about project-based learning. There's lots of PBL training going on across the state right now. Some of it is free. And if you have not had an opportunity to have that gold standard PBL training, then I highly recommend it. It is one of the key pieces that I took away when I had that training was that they encourage teachers to create little like workshop opportunities for the need to knows that kids and teachers have identified during a PBL. And I think that it is a great opportunity for them to be able to send me a small group, or whether I need to come into the classroom and work in a station rotation or another learning structure in order to be able to get those kids where they need to go and give them the support they need. You got anything to add on this one?
I'm good.
Well, we do recommend, if you have not read this Harnessing Technology for Deeper Learning, this is a really quick read. It is a great resource for you to be able to see some examples of how you can easily incorporate technology into deeper learning opportunities.
I would also suggest that in addition to this, even if you aren't with, like, I'm not our STLP coach or anything, I don't actually have anything more to do with than making their name badges for competition. But for instance, I managed to talk one of our district people. I managed to talk one of our district people into giving me a setup for a podcasting system. And under the promise that anything we created, we would make sure it could be entered into STLP competitions and everything. So I've started, when I start proposing assignments for different projects, I'm like, okay, let's look at what STLP already has. It's already got rubrics for us. And so
That was gonna be how I was gonna follow that. I was like, and if you're not using the rubrics on the STLP super sheet, then you are missing out.
I usually consult STLP stuff before anything, even though I have nothing to do with it, because it's already got what the product is, how it can be graded, and I am not reinventing that wheel. I'm just working smarter instead of harder.
And
as far as accountability and assessment, we know we are not part of the KSA. However, we do have flexible space to provide.
We're more than a cameraman.
When we are, when KSA is going on, but a lot of what we do supports all of the content that the teachers are teaching our students.
so I actually engaged in a year-long co-teaching cohort in my district last year, where we were talking about different models of co-teaching, and the station rotation and parallel teaching models are very effective, particularly when you have that room to move and that space to be able to navigate. When you can have you and your co-teacher be on the same page and present that content in a way that is more with a better student teacher ratio, then a lot of times you're going to be able to get more out of your kids with that personal attention. The library is the biggest classroom in the school, so why not take advantage of it?
And in the case of my school, it's the one place where everyone has, it's the level playing field for technology. They all have access to that technology. Whereas, you know, if you're in our performing arts, or if you're in our, maybe you're in our business department, you may only have access, you will only have access to what they have down there, but this provides more access to technology by using the space, because not all of our departments have the same amount of technology available.
And like, as I was mentioning earlier, there is the opportunity when you have, if you've co-planned, if you have designed your co-assessment, then this is a great opportunity for you to be a leader and to lead them into technology use that is creation versus consumption. So James is going to be talking about Adobe Express today, and I highly recommend you checking out all the things that Adobe Express will do. It is an incredible tool, and I've had a lot of success with even younger learners. My third graders have been very successful with using Adobe Express for a number of projects. You have the opportunity, if you're the expert, to teach the students and to teach the teacher at the same time. If you are taking the lead in that technology integration. You'll see up there in the corner, that poster, that was a collaborative project between me and a 7th grade language arts teacher, where she was studying dystopian literature, and we decided that we were going to have kids make travel posters, vintage style travel posters for those dystopian settings. And if you've read The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness, then you know that Prentisstown is not the kind of place that you want to hang out. But gosh, there's lots of little details in there. If you know that book, you know why some of those things are snarky. That was an actual student product from that unit. There's also, if you've never used News Literacy Project's Checkology, it is great for teaching news literacy, information literacy. There's a great module on the First Amendment that is good even for in social studies. But you definitely don't want to miss the STLP Super Sheet if you have not used it before. Highly recommend it.
And when we say teach the teacher, you can also, you know how we all have those PDs where they're not bringing anyone in and they want people in the district to present the PD. This is an excellent time. I know if we're doing one that's district-wide, 9 times out of 10, if I'm presenting, the teachers in my building come to me because they are already familiar with me. So I can present on something that I have in the school that I've probably told them about a million times, but here they actually get the opportunity to utilize it. And then we can sit down in an atmosphere where we're actually thinking about what lessons they want in the future and start setting up some of those collaborations. So I have found that some of my best collaborations and co-teaching moments have come as a result of me presenting for my administration at a whether it's a district or a school-wide PD, because then they actually have
totally
the
been my
time.
experience.
You actually have the time to talk with them in a somewhat captive audience.
Oh, looks like we got a hand up.
I
Yes,
saw this
Sandy.
question in the chat, and it was just, is Adobe free for K through 12, and do we use our school email to get it?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, it is free for K through 12, and you do need your district to sign on for the absolute best usage. James, I see you there, James. What have you got that you could throw in on that?
We'll totally talk about that this afternoon. I don't want to take up too much of your time. We'll talk about the issues there,
but yes, free. Like,
yeah.
And
it
use
really
your
is
school
free.
email to sign into, so you'll get the educators.
My kids use the Google button to sign in, and it's connected with their district. Like, it recognizes that they have a free education account.
Yeah, my district has it as part of through the Clever setups and all the different types of technology that we use through Clever through the district. So it's a one-click sign-on for everyone in our district.
All right. And just real quick before we move on to our final pillar, I just want to, if you've never used Breakout EDU, man, I have found so many times where it was the tool that either got a collaboration started, as I say, you can win friends and influence people. There are some times where that might have been the only thing that I ever presented that a teacher came back to me and said, hey, can you come and do that with my kids? I'm like, yes, I would love to. But it has all of the 4C skills. If we're talking about critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and
creativity,
Yes, well,
It's
yes,
creativity.
yes, those every time, I've seen in my 8th grade profile of graduate defenses, our defenses of learning, I have kids who use this as evidence every year. So even if you only want to get an account just for the library, so that or one teacher, so that you can then look things up and share them as needed and create those opportunities as needed, whether you go to the classroom, whether it's a digital breakout, whether it's a physical breakout, that you bring those kids and that teacher into the library to do. It has been worth it for me now in 3 since I tried it for the first time like 3 schools ago, and I just keep going back to it.
And I will say, this is how I collaborate with my math department more than any other way, because that collaboration, one, I'm not very good in math, but I'll just put that out there. But this is one thing that every teacher in the math department will come back and say, we want this on that. Now, if it's a pre-made game, I always give them the equations and I'm like, double check this, make sure all the answers are right. But it is the one consistent collaboration I've had for probably 5 years now with my math department. And we've had a lot of turnover in our math department, and they still keep coming back for more.
It's a winner.
Okay, so with community partnerships, working with other libraries, other schools, districts, colleges, community organizations, I know that a lot of what I do in my library would not be possible if I did not have a great partnership with the Davis County Public Library and our teen librarian. During COVID, that's how my kids got a lot of maker events. They would do take and make bags and drop them off at the school for me. And then I partnered with our transportation department, and kids would sign up using Google Forms for our take and makes, and the bus drivers would deliver them as they were delivering food and so forth. So public libraries, one of the biggest things that we do right now is that my kids can sign up for a teen library card. And once they have that, they can go to a Google form, and every Thursday, my teen librarian drops off books that they've requested, and they can put the books in my office and she will pick them up, which is huge because we're a county school and a lot of my kids live far away from the public library. And when you think about those freshmen and sophomores who don't have driver's license, this just expands my collection that they're able to utilize. So that's two of the probably biggest things we still do. They will come in and do makerspace events for me, which is great, especially when I'm running low on time to be able to do all the things that I want to do. It's nice sometimes to have them come over and them run the activity, and then they bring in additional materials, and the kids are excited because they get to see things that I don't have in the school.
And I know that the Paul Sawyer Public Library in Franklin County does outreach. They will do book clubs in the buildings. They will send staff over to run the book club in your school. And they also do, they also will pick up and drop off materials. It is worth it to contact your public library and see what they are willing to offer to you. And Carrie mentioned earlier that you can get the book kits from KDLA, the Kentucky Department of Libraries and Archives. They also have book club kits. They have the instructional, like thematic kits that are almost more like a story time or an activity kit, but they also provide from K through 12 book club kits, where if you don't have the funding to be able to purchase multiple copies of a book, then this is a great way to be able to do that. I have borrowed the book club kits because they send about 20 copies of the book in a kit. I borrow it so that my classroom teachers have additional options for class novels. And if they're doing book clubs as part of that instruction, then that allows them to try out something new without us having to spend money, which is always something that helps. I
Now,
like.
as far as the college libraries, I'm sorry, Emily, were you finished?
Oh no, I'm just talking.
As far as the college libraries go, I work closely, again, I'm high school, so I'm 9 through 12. We have one of the largest dual credit programs in the state of Kentucky. We graduate a ton of kids with their associates in arts and science and so forth. So I met with our Owensboro Community and Technical College library staff, and they actually gave me access to their website so that I could build some things on their website geared towards my Davis County students. And I'm like, okay, kids, you all know how to do this in my school. This is what you need to do in your new school to be successful. And so, it's just a matter of reaching out. They did that for actually both of our high school librarians in our district. So we're able to collaborate with those college librarians because our kids, they're over there, they're 16, 17, barely 18 years old, and they're scared to go into the campus library. But if they're already on a campus, we can do this now. Once they go to their main college, they're going to be a little less scared and more willing to seek that help. So it's just an awesome bridge for those kids that are already experiencing those college classes. And I will say that they asked me to teach a college class this year, but it was for an education thing. But I did propose out there that I would be willing to teach a graded class in library media if we could find a university that would support that, so that we could keep some of our kids on campus versus them always being off campus. Because we know a lot of times when we send them off campus, we're sending our school leaders off campus. Other things that we've done, you all have probably heard of the Dance Blue and Dance Red projects through U of L and UK for fundraising. This year, I worked with our Raise Red from Davis County High School. I know that Jonathan at Apollo worked with the Dance Blue, and then Whitney, our College View Middle School media specialist, worked on Project Purple. And all of that's based on their school colors. But another thing that we did is when we had the flooding in Eastern Kentucky, because these ran through our National Honor Societies and so forth, they also were doing the fundraising for the dance competitions, but they also were doing book drives to help schools in Eastern Kentucky get new books. So working with those other schools, even though this originated from UK, U of L, who are working with our community schools, we've been able to even localize it even more to help kids across the state. One book, one district. This is something that my district considered doing prior to COVID. We still haven't been able to get the whole one district thing off, but this would be an excellent book here because it does have so many levels for a one district. And then of course your diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging initiatives as well.
So I think, did you mention some of these partners?
Oh, and I have not. Our Boys and Girls Club. Now, one thing that we do with our seniors is we have a senior service project. So I do have a lot of connections to these organizations because we do a community service project with our seniors every year. And a lot of these organizations, our seniors are going in and doing about 3 hours of community service during senior week. But the picture up here, is actually from one of our local mental health organizations. And you'll see that you can't see a lot of the kids because I wanted them intentionally one at a table because they're filling out, some information, and it was on mindfulness and meditation and things like this and how to reduce stress. So Megan is one of our former school teachers in our district who has gone into this field, still works very closely with a lot of our students and so forth. So not everything is always geared towards reading, because it's about being a well person too. So we bring in a lot of activities like this. And sometimes we may use our Chamber of Commerce, a lot of you all probably use JA. And so I also look at it, yeah, it may not be a reading program, but once I've got them in the library, I always have a display on anything that we're doing. So all of those wellness books that I have, they're going to have access to them while they're in this particular program.
Well, just like our public library partners who have diversified their programming, I think that anything that we do programming wise that has a positive effect on our students, both academically or social emotionally, then I think those are both things that we can help contribute to achievement and to wellness. So I hope that you have thought to yourself at some point during all these about how either your own school library can support deeper learning, things that you're already doing, things that you recognized, things that you connected with, because, well, you can use all of this stuff to then turn things around and maybe get yourself some money to create some of these programs. So the American Association of School Librarians, AASL, has a couple of grant programs that we wanted to feature that you might want to consider building something over the summer that you might be able to submit. Both of these programs are going to open in September. For the STEM Special Events Grant, it will be a round 2 because they just announced their first round of winners. And the Innovative Reading Grant is something that you can also go in and look at past funded projects and maybe steal some ideas. So.
And then don't forget, like if you're a member of KISTI, there are KISTI technology grants and things like that. If you are a member of AA, or if you're not a member of CASEL, one of the best reasons to join CASEL is because we have our own grants that can be used towards your professional development. But we also have grants that if you're starting a new program, you can apply for, but you have to be a member in order to receive those grants and so forth. So
you should totally be a member of CASEL if you're a Kentucky school librarian.
Yeah, CASEL. I'm sorry. What did I say?
I don't know. I was just agreeing with you.
Okay.
Like if I had a
grants are great. That's how I managed to get a makerspace in my library. Wouldn't have one to this day if I hadn't applied for a grant. So yeah, they may be a little bit of a pain sometimes, but I always try, because even if it's just a little bit of money, it's money I didn't have beforehand. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you. I am thrilled to have seen so many people here this morning.
And hopefully we'll see all of you all at Summer Refresher on July 9th and 10th. Did I get the dates right, Emily?
Nope, it's 10th and 11th.
10th and 11th. I knew I was going to mess it up. In Frankfurt at Western Hills High School. I do know that much.